Hi Collective. This is going to be a goddess reading. Okay, but anybody that feels guided is welcome to this reading. So you have 39 minutes. Okay. So I felt guided to the Rose Oracle and the Starseed. I've been saying I've been trying to get into my Starseed oracles, and I will be doing my next Starseed reading with the oracles, but this Rose Oracle really stood out to me today. Okay, and the significance of it with Venus going direct has stood out to me. So I wanted to start to get into the readings. This is a deck that I've had for quite some time. I picked it up with the Starseed Oracle. I thought it would go nice with this deck, and every time I've used it, I didn't feel like it was time for me to use it. It didn't flow together with the readings, right? I always talk about timing, right? And when I'm guided to decks is when it's meant for me to use them. And there's just something very significant with today and what was uncovering for me. Okay, and roses have always been very significant to me. Something I've known. My youngest daughter, her middle name is Rose as well. So anyway, let's get into this. So the rose is the mystical queen of all the flowers. From Ishtar to Isis, Aphrodite to Venus, Iona to Mother Mary, and further back we trace the rose threads. The more often we see this flower appearing as a symbol of goddesses in many of the world's traditions. And often these goddesses bear a striking resemblance to one another. Some were worshipped in secret, others were absorbed and renamed. In many cases, the scent of the rose is one of the numerous sacred symbols in art and story that threads them together. In times, ancient garlands of roses were placed around statues of mother goddesses worldwide and to worship of her. The prayer beads used by the Catholics today stem from the rose tradition. In fact, the word rosary comes from the Latin rosarum, meaning the rose garden. The crown of the roses, the garland of roses, just like the goddesses of the old. Mother Mary, Jesus' mother, is closely associated with the rose. It is known by many different names linked to the flower, including mystic rose and the rose without thorns. Iona, a Mesopotamian goddess associated with love, beauty, sex, war, justice, and political power, had the rose as her symbol. The rose was also a symbol of the Egyptian goddess Isis, who is thought to have been an incarnation of Ishtar, a Sumerian goddess, and Sophia, a force present at the beginning of creation itself. In the mythology and literature of ancient Greece and Rome, the rose is a powerful symbol of love and beauty. Homer the Iliad described how rose oil was used to anoint the body of Hector, who had the embodiment of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, and fertility. Aphrodite is often portrayed with a crown of roses on her head, and she was honored and bountiful amounts of white roses. Legend says that rose itself sprang from Aphrodite's tears as the death of her lover, Adonis, and that it turned from white to red when a drop of the goddess's blood fell upon it. Aphrodite's son Eros, the god of love and sexual desire, was often depicted with a wreath of roses. The three graces, ancient Greek goddesses associated with beauty, charm, nature, creativity, and fertility, are said to have scattered roses all over the earth to celebrate the union of the Psyche, the goddess of the soul, and Eros. Worship of Aphrodite was adopted by the Romans. They named her Venus, and she became associated with the garden. One of the most famous depictions of Venus is Italian artist Sandro Botticelli, 15th century, The Birth of Venus. It captures the ancient myth in which Venus is birthed from a foam of the sea, and where the foam fell, white roses grew. In one Roman story, Flora, the goddess of spring and flowers, discovered the body of a beautiful nymph in the forest. Grief-stricken, she portrayed it for it to be transformed into the most beautiful flower ever known. The three graces in Venus then turned the nymph's body into a rose, and from that day on, the rose became known as the queen of the flowers. Another Roman myth, the goddess Cybele and Magnum Mater, Great Mother, is said to have created the rose because she was jealous of Venus and wanted something more beautiful to attract Adonis. The rose and hidden Celtic god of worship. The rose had deep roots within the goddesses of the pre-Christian Celtics people do, and in many ceremonies and rituals in the Celtic tradition, roses were used to represent the heart. However, when Christianity was adopted by the Romans and later spread throughout the empire, pagan flower festivals and rituals were denounced by the church, and sometimes roses were even forbidden in graveyards. As Christianity had begun establishing across Europe, one of the church's conversion strategies was to replace the deities that the people of the land had worshipped for hundreds of years with Christian saints. For example, the Celtic goddess Bridget became Saint Bridget, and the goddess Anu became Saint Anne. And people were taught to worship only one male god and their Father and the Son and the Holy Trinity. Hold on just a second. Turn the games down, please. The reverence of the feminine and for nature that was so present in ancient goddess worship in indigenous Celtic spiritual tradition was largely lost. However, those who longed to keep alive the connections with the divine feminine found new routes to her. For some, this desire manifested as a devotion to Mother Mary, with the rose as her symbol, just as it is with the earlier mother goddesses. Mary became the goddess that people could actively worship without fear of persecution. Historically, roses have been a symbol of secret knowledge and confidentiality. The ancient Romans wore garlands of rose petals on special occasions, and when they were hung above important meeting places, the conversations that took place beneath them were considered sub rosa, literally, under the rose. It was understood that anything said under the rose would be kept secret and non-repeated. There also is an image of an ancient Egyptian god Horus, the son of Isis, sitting with the rose and holding his fingers to his lips, symbolizing silence about the deep mysteries, what was sacred and hidden, and the origin of the rose code that had been linked to the Rosicrucian Brotherhood, who were named for their symbol, a rose on a cross, in order to claim to possess secret wisdoms that had been passed down since ancient times. When the rose has medicinal properties and is used in food for healing purposes, such as teas, oils, and essence, perhaps her main purpose for humanity is to evoke a sense of awe. When we're around the rose, our soul hears the invitation to be more fully here. Her scent and symmetry take our breath away and can result in having a moment of transcendence and eminence at the very same time. Some see the rose cross as a symbol of the heaven and earth, with the rose as the intersection point, spirit and earth combined, the soul planted here. The Bible story of the Garden of Eden features apples, which, like roses, are members of the plants of the family of the Rosaceae. There is an ancient story from Peru that may echo the connections in it. Eve takes a rose rather than an apple. I wonder how different life would be if we all were told the story instead. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is arguably one of humanity's most influential stories, as Eve is cast out of the garden and into original sin. And in my opinion, the story is one that we must rewrite as we work with the Mother Rose. I believe that we're being called to remember and realize that we were all sacred and holy, that our souls have always been immortal, and that we were never cast out of the garden in the first place, for we are all nature, from soul to bone, from spirits to toes. The severing or separation from the earth, from seeing ourselves as nature, from seeing the feminine within each one of us as sacred and holy, and it's where the work of the sacred feminine begins. In Islam, the fragrance of the rose represents the sacredness of the soul, and in both Islam and Christianity, smelling the scent of a rose where there are none nearby is said to signify the presence of the divine. An Islamic text says that Muhammad made his journey into the presence of the divine. A drop of the sweet landed on the earth, and the rose manifested in its place. In the mystical Islamic movement, Sufism, the rose symbolizes perfection and deep union with God. Her thorns represent the difficulties we can face, and the face the rose continues to bloom holds the teachings of being reborn while still living the lesson and found of other mystical traditions too. To the mystical poet of Sufism, the The rose represents the perfect beauty of God, the sacred geometry of all life. My favorite mystical poet, who lived in the 14th century, used the rose intimately in his poetry to devotion to the beloved within. Okay, so it gets into other places. Okay, so even in the tarot, the rose community appears in 4 cards. On the Fool card, the white rose represents purity. On the Magician, it commonly represents the unfolding of wisdom. On the Strength card, it communicates balance. On the Death card, it brings a clarity of intention. Throughout history, roses have been also associated with angels. Some believe that putting out roses, they'll attract the angelical realm, and that if we're blessed to smell roses in the air when no roses are present, it's a sign that an angel is nearby. In literature, the third part of a poem of a sunlit white rose and represents the mystic's attainment to the union with God. The poet's spiritual quest has been fulfilled. And then in mathematics, the Fibonacci series and the golden ratio, in which is based on the number sequence discovered in 1202, is a sequence, and each number of the sum precedes 2 numbers can be found in all life. The petals of a rose hold this sacred ratio, with each new set of petals growing in the space of the previous set. Wow. So it gets into more and more. There's a lot on this. This is so beautiful. I'm almost done here. And then we're going to pull some cards from the Oracle and see the beautiful messages that come out. So the healer of these changing times. I believe that this ancient flower, which growing significantly in popularity, has a very important message for the hearts of humankind right now. I believe that she carries powerful, much yearned for medicine and the potential for healing that is so needed in these times. At this moment in time, when it is clear that humanity has a great degree lost its way, and there is so much division and trauma arising to be healed, it makes sense to me that the rose, cloaked in so much ancient mystery and sacredness, seems to be reaching out to us, or we're reaching out to her. In my experience of working actively with her for more than a decade, the rose isn't afraid to deliver to us what we need the most. For some, this may be a soothing, gentle holding, and heart-expanding healing. For others, it may be a fear push to find the courage to open when we most want to shut down, separate, and close. For some, it may be descent into the dark void, while others may be reconnecting with our roots and sureness of the soil. For some, it may be finding our way to surrender the very thing about us that captivating others for the chance to begin again, and for others to be welcoming an unexpected second bloom. We're living in an era where division and polarity are an all-time high. There's so much separation, and at times it feels as though nothing we can all agree on. The rose shows us how to soften through our grief and how that safe is to soften. She shows us how to strengthen through sorrow, how to stay open when we're experiencing separation, how to trust in the seasons of our lives, how to dig our roots deep, and how to, regardless of who is around, indeed, we need our ancient heart medicine of the rose now more than ever. The rose is much more ancient than we are. She has had civilizations come and go and knows how much more we do about living harmlessly on this planet Earth. Soft and beautiful, strong and hardy, she trusts her timing and always finds the courage to bud, blossom, fruit, and surrender her petals to the wind for the chance to be reborn while still fully living. May we open our hearts to her wisdom and our ears to her ancient song. The rose has deep teachings and technology coded within her. I believe that if we slow down enough to connect with her and listen to her, it's possible to hear secret hidden and lost through time. I've seen that what we've began working with the rose and indeed other plants. Something ancient can be unlocked within us too. Sometimes the codes seated within us, our ancestry, are unlocking as we begin to remember and return more fully to earth. We're reconnected with the plants, the flowers, the stones, and the trees. We're also reconnected with the ones within our ancestry who were there before there were a severing from the mother. Repeatedly, we're invited to plant ourselves here in a way that's different to before. We're living in a time between myth and story, and while it can at times feel as though everything is falling apart, there is an opportunity for a reweaving to happen. And I believe that the rose can help us with this reweaving. That through working with her and doing our own necessary healing and integration work, we have an opportunity together to weave a new future for humanity. Wow, isn't that very powerful? So, yeah, when I started to get into more of the reading, I was like, I need to record this before I get started, because I don't often read the front of the books. A lot of times I just get so curious to get into the cards and the meanings. And sometimes I'm called, and like I said today, I was called to get into the book before the cards. So I wanted to record that. The first few pages I skipped over. Okay, the call of the rose, creating with the rose, the returning to the garden, the medicine of the rose. And then I got into We Are Nature. I think this is the part they were calling me back to. And then returning to the garden. I'm trying to see where I picked up. And the ancient rose, the roots. I started right at the rose and the goddess. So they wanted me to read this part about how we are nature, how we're one with the rose, because that was how it was closing out. Okay. And how we're co-creating with the rose. I won't get back into all of this reading, but where I just read this little section here, and then we'll get into the card. So, if you look up the word nature in the dictionary, you see that one definition. It's all plants, animals, and physical features on Earth, as well as its forces and processes. You also see the definition doesn't just omit humans. It specifically states that we're not part of nature, that we're separate from it. Is it any wonder then that so many of us feel so disconnected, and that humanity has caused so much harm to this planet rather than seeing ourselves as an extension of it? I believe that this is a real separation that so many of us feel, that from Earth itself, and thus from ourselves and each other. I believe that humanity's separation from Earth as our mother, from her seasons, her cyclic ways, and her ever-changing states, has caused so many of us the problem that we face on this planet today. And that when we see the divine as the man in the sky rather than woven into the earth, the separation becomes even more evident. I believe now more than ever that we need to see the sacred in all things, to notice the breathtaking beauty that's all around us, to see the sacred in the trees, the flowers, the plants, the stones, as well as within ourselves and each other, to weave the soul back into our everyday lives, and to believe that the rose is a powerful gateway to doing so. If we're returning to the garden, if we track it back far enough, we'll find that the earth-based indigenous traditions from our ancestries, wise ones who tended the lands and showed reverence for the sacred wovens through it all, and despite the tragic harm caused by colonialism and patriarchy, there are still indigenous wisdom keepers living and in past who hold the thread and sing to us all. I keep hearing, just as the natural initiated shamans, right? Some have went through initiations by the universe, right? Like, you'll know if that stands out to you or not, right? If you felt that the universe has always been talking to you, responding to you, connecting with you. May we protect and support and revere them. May we listen deeply to their song. The plants, the trees, the flowers, and stones also carry all the lost wisdom. Through working with the plants, such as the rose, we can return to earth and reach back to our ancestors, the ones who didn't forget. And when we do, there's a possible we'll discover that they too are singing us on. For a majority of us, the ties with the ancient earth traditions of our ancestors have been severed by colonialism and invasion of the church, worship of the earth, as the living goddess and the great mother became forbidden and in many cases forgotten. Reverence for the sacredness of the feminine and the earth became dormant due to the persecutions and the silencing. In many parts of the world, healers, shamans, medicine people, midwives, and those who work with the plants to heal were persecuted, and their wisdom's work was forbidden. Tragically, some lineages have been lost, but in the plants they echo on. That's why I say for the ones, these are lost things that you could not stop. You could not go against what you were feeling within. Still, after all the times and all the harm is done, nature cradles, heals, and calls us to return to her. The trees, the stones, the plants, the flowers, now more than ever, nature is calling for us to remember her and to weave the secret back into our everyday lives. I believe that she's showing us how to be human and thrive on the planet Earth every moment of every day. The rose is one of the many plants that are singing to us to return to ourselves, each other, and to the earth before it's too late. And they just show me a graphic image. It's just like, look at all of the roses that they cut down every single year around the same time. They cut all of those roses down. I know it's supposed to be the honoring. Why did you show me just all of that? You know? It's all about smoke and mirrors, manipulate. It's like they've always been flipping things to serve their agenda, making us see things different ways, right? And they've turned like roses into Valentine's Day and lust and love, and really it's after Valentine's Day, it's really based after murders and things like that, right? But they're cutting down all of the flowers. Okay. I'm gonna stop. Just, I didn't like that. Okay. Let me just stop that. So, the rose is an ancient flower with roots far deeper than those of humanity. They reach back more than 35 million years, with the fossilized remains of the rose leaves and the petals having been found in Asia, Europe, and North America. While today there are countless types of roses, they all fit into three main groups. The first is the species rose, commonly referred to as wild roses. These are the oldest type, stemming from the Rosa gallica. The species roses bloomed once and have been between 4 and 8 petals. The second group is old garden roses. They are roses that existed before 1867, and the first hybrid tea rose was introduced. Examples of old garden roses. Okay, I don't want to get into all the different roses, right? And then I get into the goddesses, but so there's a lot on okay, I'm not going to try to explain why they wanted me to read that at this time, but they did. So take what you would with that. Let's get into some cards. On the bottom, look, tend to your garden, sustainability, slow down the wastelands. Alright, anyway, let's get some messages that are coming up. Come to me, attracting like a rose, receive abundance and desire. A rose without thorns. You have the right to your joy, peace, sweetness, delight. We're going to get the reading from the book for each of these. I was told to do 3. The morning dew. Clarity, a fresh start, a positive outlook. And we'll go to 4 because I always look at the bottom, right? The return, a new story. You decide, alignment, it's coming together. Okay, so let's see. All right, let's start with come to me. Have you ever noticed how in summer, when the roses are at the fullest and their scent is hanging in the air, bees and other pollinators suddenly appear? Pollination happens when pollen from one plant mixes with pollen from another, or is transferred from a stigma of one flower to the stigma of another. Roses don't go running all over the place, reaching and grabbing. Rather, they rely on the bees to come to them. The rose is never reaching for the bees. It's never grasping or overstretching. It embraces what it's fully and allows life to come to it. It receives it fully. It doesn't open and close according to who walks by it. It opens and blooms regardlessly. This card is about receiving abundance, rose style. It is an invitation to receive the sweetness of your life and to embrace the magnificence of who you are. And to also be open yourself up to the possibility of receiving what you yearn for deeply. To be clear on what you desire, to trust that all you are meant to, to trust that all that's meant for you wants to come to you. To state your desires out loud and to let your yearnings be known. To ask for what you desire. Don't reach or grasp, don't strive, control, or manipulate. That will leave you exhausted, parched, and brittle. This card refers to the message that true sustainability abundance is coming. Connect with your sensual true nature. Be unashamed of what you desire, and when it comes, release each minute. Wow, that is beautiful. Okay, rose without thorns. You have the right to your joy and peace. Most roses have thorns that protect the plant. When you walk past, it's so easy to get caught on their spiky stems, as if the thorns themselves are initiation for the observer to get to the breathtaking beauty and scent of the queen of the flowers in the full bloom. However, there are small numbers of roses that are unlike most, possessing few or no thorns, and that is what this card is all about. The rose without thorns is an invitation to dive straight into the sweetness of your life, to rest in the softness, to enjoy the delicious fragrance, to rest in, relish what it means to currently alive in this body, to embrace all the beauty and bliss that life has to offer. You have the right to your joy, and the rose without thorn wants you to take every ounce of it is right now. To celebrate and to lose yourself in the sweetness of your life. This is a rare moment in time of deep peace and enjoyment. You're being called to taste all that it has to offer, to drink it all in. You deserve every drop. You've worked for this moment. Embrace it now with open arms. It's safe for you to enjoy this, to welcome this, to embody all of this. And while life is ever changing and forever inviting us to grow, right now is your lesson to be in the delight of it all. Wow, beautiful. Okay, and in the morning dew. There is a special moment when the day is new and the sun is still young, when we too are given the opportunity to begin again. The presence of this morning dew welcomes us with the grace of a fresh start. As the moisture gathers on the rose, it invites us to see clearly, sometimes in a whole new way than we did the previous day. A new perspective is suddenly here. Healers from all corners of the earth believe in this incredible healing quality of the morning dew. They believe that it possesses the same healing properties as the plants themselves, with the dew capturing their essence and their clear potency. Practices such as walking barefoot on the morning dew, drinking from the petals of a flower, and placing dew on the body are thought to bring about powerful shifts in healing. If we're lucky enough to meet this morning in the way that we too may be blessed in this special healing liquid that carries the secret essence of both the earth and the entire universe within it, the morning dew. This card brings the message that clarity is on its way, a new start, a change of perspective is possible. Shifts are coming, the future is looking renewed, hopeful, positive, and bright. Keep focusing on your ideal outcomes and trust the presence of the potent morning dew. Wow. Okay. And then the last card, and we'll close out this reading, is the Return. A new story. You decide. Alignment. It's coming together. You've waited patiently for this moment. You're likely been working on this inner for some time, and now the outer is beginning to come into alignment. As changing begins, we're in a never-ending growth cycle. This doesn't mean that we're constantly in bloom. No, this means that we're constantly changing. This card is like the bloom. However, it's more powerful than that. It heralds the coming and going of a whole new way of being. An entirely new story has been written. This card heralds a great shift in your life. This often takes time, sometimes even lifetimes. Acknowledge how far you've come and how much you've grown. You're a part of a creating change not only in your own life but in this world. Take a moment to take it in. You're just one of many, but being here matters. A petal in the rose of a new humanity, part of the forever unfolding. Things are aligning for you and around you. They're conveying and coming together. You're in the right place at the right time. Your outer world matches your inner world. This card is delivering a message of harmony, coming together, and the embodiment of holding a clear vision for many years. You've been doing the groundwork to get to this moment right here, perhaps for months, years, or even lifetimes. Use this moment. You get to decide what happens next. Alright, guys. Gods, goddesses, whoever felt guided into this message, I'm going to leave it here. I'm sending love and light to all of you. You could definitely take a look at surrounding readings with this beautiful fresh start, full moon energy with Venus has just gone direct. It's very beautiful. All right, buddies.